The city lights flickered like tiny stars scattered across the earth below. From above, the world seemed peaceful, quiet, and ordinary. Yet, for one visitor from a distant star system, it was anything but ordinary. A sleek silver ship, shaped like a teardrop, descended through the clouds, moving silently over the city. Inside, a figure stood rigid, her eyes fixed on the world below. She was tall, with glowing skin that shimmered faintly in the dim light, and her hair flowed like liquid, silver. Every step she took inside the ship radiated grace and authority. She was Princess Lyra of the planet Xanthara, and she had come a very long way. Her heart, however, was not focused on her royal duties or the political crises awaiting her back home. It was on him, the human who had stolen her trust, her admiration, and perhaps a piece of her heart. "Why did you leave me?" she whispered to herself, her voice trembling slightly. Her eyes glimmered with a mixture of pain and determination. She had crossed light years of space, navigated hostile star systems, and evaded trackers to find him, all for one reason: to understand why he had vanished without a trace. The ship landed silently in an abandoned industrial area on the outskirts of the city. Humans passed nearby, unaware of the metal craft resting behind a cluster of warehouses. Lyra stepped out, feeling the weight of Earth's gravity pressing on her in a way her home planet never had. She flexed her fingers, noticing how small and delicate they felt compared to her usual strength. Even here her alien form drew attention, but she moved as if invisible, careful not to alarm anyone. Her first steps on Earth were cautious, observant. She studied humans as she walked among them, noting the way they moved, spoke, and laughed. Their world was messy, chaotic, yet full of life. Every little detail fascinated her: the hum of cars, the scent of street food, the way people seemed absorbed in their tiny personal problems. Lyra knew she had little time. The human she sought, Ethan, was careful, clever, and unpredictable. Finding him would not be simple. Her first stop was a small cafe near the city center. Ethan had once mentioned that he liked coffee, a human habit that Lyra had found both amusing and endearing. She stood outside observing the crowd. Humans came and went, chatting, laughing, or staring at glowing screens. Her sharp eyes scanned every face, every movement, searching for the one that would make her journey complete. Memories of him flooded her mind. She remembered the first time they met on Xanthara, a planet torn by conflict. Ethan had been a stranger, among strangers, but he had shown courage when others feared to act. He had saved her from an ambush not because of orders or duty, but because he had chosen to do so. He had smiled at her afterward, that human smile so simple, so genuine, yet so powerful that it had lingered in her memory for years. And then he had left. Without a word, without explanation, Lyra clenched her fists. The pain of abandonment burned deep within her. She had tried to forget him, tried to bury the memories under layers of royal responsibility. But nothing worked. Every thought, every heartbeat whispered his name. She had no choice but to follow him, even if it meant walking a path she did not understand. Inside the cafe, she ordered a drink using careful mimicry of human words. The barista looked confused but obeyed. Lyra sipped the bitter liquid, marveling at the strange sensation it created in her body. It was nothing like the nourishment she was used to on Xanthara, but she found it comforting in a way she could not explain. She waited. Hours passed. The sun sank lower, casting long shadows across the streets. People left, the cafe emptied, and the city began its nightly rhythm. Lyra's patience never wavered. She was a princess, trained to endure discomfort and wait for the perfect moment. And this was a moment she would not waste. Finally, she saw him. Ethan. He looked older than she remembered, his hair slightly disheveled, his eyes carrying the weight of human concerns. Yet he was unmistakable. The same sharp gaze, the same hesitant smile, the same aura of quiet strength. Her heart raced. She wanted to run to him, to demand answers, to hold him close. But she knew she could not. He was human, and humans were unpredictable. A sudden approach might scare him, or worse, drive him away. She followed him at a distance as he walked home. Every step, every turn of his head was etched into her memory. She noticed the small things, the way he paused to help a stray cat, the way he glanced at the stars in the night sky. These little gestures reminded her why she had cared for him in the first place. As night fell, she found a quiet rooftop to observe him. The city hummed below, alive with lights and movement. Lyra leaned against the wall, her thoughts a storm of emotions. "Why did you leave me, Ethan?" She whispered into the wind. "I crossed galaxies for you. I risked everything. Why?" She remembered the last moments they had shared on Zenthara. He had looked at her with something like guilt in his eyes, had promised to return, and then nothing. No message, no signal, no sign. Just silence. Lyra's resolve hardened. She would not leave Earth without finding him. She would uncover the reason for his disappearance, no matter the cost. Suddenly, her communicator beeped softly. It was a holographic message from her aide back on Zenthara, warning her that agents from rival factions had tracked her journey. They knew she had left, and they would follow. She frowned. "I knew it would not be simple," she muttered. She had expected obstacles, but the thought of enemies finding him on Earth made her blood run cold. She could not let anything happen to him, not now, not after coming so far. Lyra made a decision. She would stay close, hidden, and observe. She would learn his patterns, his routines, his habits. She would find the truth. And when the time came, she would confront him, not as a princess of a distant world, but as someone who had loved and trusted him. Her first night on Earth passed in quiet observation. She noted the city's rhythms, the sounds, the lights, the movement. She noted everything about Ethan, from the way he folded his jacket to the way he walked with careful steps on the uneven sidewalks. Every detail mattered. Every detail could reveal why he had left. As she lay on the rooftop staring at the stars, she felt a strange connection. Earth was so different from Zenthara, yet here she was, driven by the same emotions she had felt on her home world. Loyalty, trust, love. "Lyra," whispered to the night, "I will find you, Ethan. I will understand. And when I do, we will face the truth together." And so began her quest on Earth, a journey that would test her patience, challenge her understanding of humanity, and force her to confront feelings she had long tried to bury. She was a princess, yes, but she was also someone who had loved, a human enough to cross the stars, and that love would guide her no matter what dangers or mysteries lay ahead. As the city slept, Lyra's eyes glimmered with determination. Somewhere among millions of humans Ethan lived. Somewhere he waited, perhaps unaware that his past had come to find him. And somewhere the universe was about to witness a reunion that had been written across the stars long before either of them had been born. The next morning, Earth felt different to Princess Lyra. The sun rose over the city in a golden haze, casting shadows on buildings and streets she had already begun to study. She had spent the night watching him, memorizing his routines, and quietly feeling the pull of emotions she had tried to suppress. Ethan had left her without explanation, yet here she was, following him across an unfamiliar planet. She had to understand why, and she had to find him before anyone else did. Lyra moved through the streets with precision, careful not to draw attention. Humans were curious but slow to act, giving her the advantage. Her long strides allowed her to keep pace with Ethan without effort. Even though she looked different, taller, more radiant, and slightly unnatural in her presence, people rarely paid close attention. Most were too absorbed in their own lives to notice. Her first step was to understand him. She needed to know where he went, what he did, and who he interacted with. She knew his habits from brief glimpses during her previous observation, but now she required more detailed knowledge. She visited his favorite cafe again. The barista recognized her from yesterday's visit but dismissed her as a tourist. Lyra took a corner seat watching the door. Every time a customer entered, she scanned them carefully. Her sharp eyes noticed every small detail. The way someone's fingers tapped a counter, the curve of a smile, even the faintest glances at the sky. Hours passed. Ethan did not appear. Lyra's patience, however, was unmatched. She was a princess, trained to endure discomfort, to wait, and to act only when the moment was right. Still, her mind wandered back to memories of him. She remembered their first real conversation on Xanthera. It had been night, under the glow of twin moons. Ethan had asked her about the stars, about her planet, about her people. His curiosity had been genuine, filled with warmth and wonder. "You see," he had said, pointing at the sky, "the universe is huge, but every time I meet someone like you, it feels smaller, safer, connected." Lyra had felt something stir inside her, then a connection she had never known she could feel. He had touched a part of her she had hidden behind royal duties and responsibilities, and then, in the blink of an eye, he had disappeared. Her fingers clenched on the edge of the table. She would not let that happen again. Not here, not on Earth. Lyra began to gather information. She used a small device from her ship that allowed her to detect electronic signals, subtle energy traces, and personal identifiers unique to Ethan. It was advanced technology, far beyond human understanding, but she used it carefully, aware that she could not reveal herself too soon. Her search led her to a small apartment building in the city's quieter district. She could feel his energy signature faintly through the walls. He was home. She crouched behind a corner, observing the building, noting the people entering and leaving. She watched for hours, mapping out routines. She saw him leave for work, return home, stop at small shops. She noticed his kindness to strangers, how he helped a neighbor carry groceries, how he paused to rescue a cat stuck on a fence. These details reminded her why she had cared for him so deeply. Humans were fragile, yet their small acts of courage and empathy held immense power. Her communicator beeped softly. It was a warning from her aide back on Xanthera. Lyra ignored it for now, focusing on Ethan. The agents from rival factions were tracking her, yes, but they could not find her unless she made a mistake. She had to stay focused. As the day turned into night, Lyra followed him to a quiet park. Ethan often went there to sketch the stars, a hobby he had mentioned to her during their brief time together on Xanthera. She watched him sit on a bench, pencil moving quickly over paper, capturing the constellations above. Her heart tightened. How had he managed to leave her all those years ago, and yet still keep the same habits, the same quiet love for the universe? She wanted to run to him, to demand answers, but she knew she had to be patient. She had to approach him carefully. Humans were unpredictable, and any sudden move could drive him away. Lyra decided to wait. She would study him for a few days, understand him completely, and only then reveal herself. During the next few days, she moved carefully through the city, blending in as best as she could. She walked among humans, observing their behaviors, noting their routines, and gathering clues about Ethan's life. She learned where he worked, what he ate, and even which streets he preferred for his evening walks. Her alien senses allowed her to notice things humans missed, the faintest energy traces he left behind, the subtle changes in his mood, even the faint heartbeat patterns when he thought no one was watching. Every detail mattered. Every observation brought her closer to understanding why he had left her. But the search was not without challenges. Humans were unpredictable. One day, a curious neighbor approached her asking if she was lost. Another day, a security camera almost caught her as she scanned the street for Ethan. Lyra had to be clever, using stealth and her alien technology, to avoid detection. Despite these challenges, she felt a growing admiration for humans. They were weak in many ways, fragile, emotional, easily injured, but they were resilient. They adapted quickly, solved problems with creativity, and showed courage even in small everyday actions. Lyra realized that humans were not just fascinating, they were remarkable. One evening, as she observed Ethan from a rooftop, she saw him pause to look at the sky. The stars reminded her of home, of Xanthera. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine what it would be like to sit beside him, to explain why she had come and to hear his side of the story. Her mind wandered to the last time she saw him. He had been serious, tense, almost fearful. There had been urgency in his eyes, a reason for leaving that he could not explain at the time. Now she hoped she would finally understand, but understanding was not enough. She knew that agents from Zenthara's rival factions were closing in. They had tracked her arrival, and some had discovered clues pointing to Ethan. If they reached him first, he could be in danger. She had to act, but carefully. Any misstep could cost them both dearly. Lyra's determination hardened. She would protect him. She would find him. And she would uncover the truth about why he had left. The next morning, she made her move. Using the information she had gathered, she approached the park where Ethan often sketched. She remained hidden, watching him from a distance. She observed his movements, noting every habit, every detail. Her patience was rewarded when she noticed a small envelope tucked inside his sketchbook. She recognized it immediately as something he often carried, a note from someone he trusted. Curiosity piqued, Lyra decided to get closer. She moved silently, blending with the shadows of the park's trees. The breeze carried the scent of flowers and damp earth, a smell that reminded her of Zenthara's gardens. Ethan looked up from his sketchbook and scanned the park. His eyes seemed to search for someone, or perhaps something. Lyra's heart raced. Was he aware of her presence? Had he felt her watching him all this time? She decided not to reveal herself just yet. Instead, she watched, waiting for the perfect moment. She knew that rushing could ruin everything. Humans required careful handling, especially when emotions ran deep. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the park, Lyra felt a mixture of hope and anxiety. She was close, closer than she had ever been. She had crossed galaxies to find him, and now, after days of careful observation, she was ready to take the next step. Her communicator beeped again, a warning she could no longer ignore. Agents from Zenthara's rival factions had detected her energy signature. They were on Earth, moving quickly, and Ethan was now in real danger. Lyra's eyes narrowed. She would not allow them to reach him first. She would protect him, confront him, and finally understand why he had left. The time for waiting was over. With one final glance at the stars, she whispered, "Soon, Ethan. Soon I will find you, and this time, you will not escape me." And with that, she melted into the shadows, moving silently toward him, ready to begin the most important chapter of her journey, one that would reveal secrets, confront fears, and challenge both of them in ways neither could have imagined. Lyra had come across the stars, faced the unknown, and risked everything. Now she was about to face the most human of all emotions, hope, fear, and the desperate need to understand the heart of someone she loved. The search had only just begun. The city was quiet that evening, the streets bathed in a soft golden glow from streetlights. Princess Lyra moved carefully through the shadows, her eyes fixed on the figure ahead. There he was, Ethan, the human who had haunted her thoughts across galaxies, the human who had disappeared without explanation. He sat on a park bench, sketchbook open on his lap, pencil gliding across the paper as he captured the stars above. Lyra's heart tightened at the sight. Time had changed him, yes, but only slightly. His calm demeanor, the quiet strength in his posture, and the small, precise movements of his hands remained exactly as she remembered. She took a deep breath. This was it, the moment she had waited for. She stepped out from the shadows, her presence commanding but cautious. Her glowing eyes met his, and for a heartbeat, he froze, pencil hovering above the page. "Lyra," he whispered, disbelief and shock mingling in his voice. She nodded slowly, her gaze steady. "It is me, Ethan. I came to find you." He closed his sketchbook, his eyes wide. I can't believe this. You... How... Why?" Words stumbled from his lips, disbelief evident in every syllable. Lyra felt a wave of emotion she had fought to suppress, hurt, longing, and a small spark of hope. "Why did you leave me, Ethan?" she asked softly, her voice carrying both anger and sorrow. "I came all this way, crossed light years, and you vanished without a word." Ethan looked down, guilt shadowing his features. He ran a hand through his hair, clearly struggling to find the right words. "I didn't mean to leave you. Not really. I thought I was protecting you." Lyra tilted her head, confusion flickering across her face. "Protecting me? From what?" He finally met her gaze, his eyes serious. "From them. The enemies on your planet. They were after me. I thought if I left you'd be safe. I didn't know how to explain it then." Her anger softened slightly, replaced by a mixture of understanding and lingering hurt. "You left? Me to face the galaxy alone?" "No," he said quickly. "I left to keep you alive. I couldn't risk your life, not when I knew what they were capable of." His voice trembled with emotion, revealing the burden he had carried all these years. Lyra's heart ached. She had imagined countless scenarios: anger, betrayal, abandonment. But not this. He had left, yes, but not out of cruelty. He had acted out of care, a human's instinct to protect those they love, even at a personal cost. For a moment, silence stretched between them. The city hummed softly around them, unaware of the reunion taking place in the quiet park. Lyra studied him carefully. The man she had once trusted completely was still the same, human, fragile yet brave and resourceful. "Do you understand now why I had to come?" she asked finally, her voice steady. "I had to see for myself, to know the truth." Ethan nodded, relief and regret mingling in his expression. "I understand. And I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you." Lyra let out a small, almost imperceptible sigh. The tension in her body eased, but her mind remained alert. She knew this reunion was fragile. One wrong move, one misunderstanding, and it could all crumble. As they talked, subtle sounds in the distance caught her attention. A faint hum, almost like distant engines. Unfamiliar technology. She stiffened instantly, her senses on high alert. "Lyra, what is it?" Ethan asked, noticing her sudden shift. "Trouble," she said quietly. "You are not safe here. They have tracked me, and they will come for you too." Ethan's eyes widened. "Tracked you? Who? What are you talking about?" Lyra hesitated, weighing how much to reveal. "Enemies from my world. They knew I left. They are following me, and they might be close. We need to move. Now." He stood, his instinct to help immediately kicking in. "Then let's go, I'll help you." For the first time in years, they were side by side. She felt a flicker of warmth, a reminder of the bond they had shared on Zenthera. Together, they could face anything. They moved quickly, slipping through alleys and side streets. Ethan's human ingenuity complemented Lyra's advanced skills. She guided him with quiet instructions, and he adapted quickly, using his knowledge of the city to their advantage. As they ran, Lyra felt a surge of pride. Humans were weaker in strength, yes, but their adaptability, quick thinking, and courage in dangerous situations were remarkable. Ethan was a perfect example. He remained calm, alert, and resourceful, even when faced with threats beyond his comprehension. After several tense minutes, they reached a safer location, a rooftop overlooking the city. From there, Lyra could see the faint shimmer of distant ships cloaked and moving silently. Her heart tightened. The enemies were closer than she had feared. "They're here," she said softly, her eyes scanning the horizon. "We need a plan. We cannot face them head-on in the city." Ethan nodded, determination in his eyes. "Then we fight smart. We use what we have, and we survive." Lyra smiled faintly, a mixture of pride and relief. Humans were indeed unpredictable, but their creativity and courage made them formidable allies. She had always known this, but seeing it firsthand on Earth in Ethan confirmed it. As they prepared for the coming danger, their conversation shifted back to personal matters. "Why didn't you ever try to contact me?" Lyra asked, her voice tinged with curiosity and lingering hurt. "I wanted to," Ethan admitted. "Every day I thought about sending a message, but I couldn't. Every time I tried, the risk was too great. If they intercepted anything, you would have been in danger immediately. I thought leaving was the safest choice, and even if it hurt both of us." Lyra's eyes softened. She had expected anger, resentment, perhaps even betrayal. Instead, she found understanding, empathy, and the complicated layers of human emotion. "I see," she said quietly. "You left to protect me. I should have known." Ethan reached out, hesitating for a moment, then gently touched her hand. "Lyra, I never stopped caring, not for a second." Her heart fluttered. This human, fragile and mortal, had risked so much without even realizing it. He had left to protect her, yet still, in some way, he had never truly abandoned her. Their moment was interrupted by a sudden movement below, a shadowy figure darting across the street. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "They've found us," she said, her voice low and urgent. Ethan tensed, ready for whatever came next. "Then we fight," he said simply, his courage unwavering. Lyra nodded, her confidence bolstered by his determination. Together they would face the approaching threat. She had traveled across galaxies to find him, and now that she would not let anything harm him. Not here, not now. They moved carefully, preparing for the confrontation. Lyra's alien technology hummed softly, ready to deploy, while Ethan's sharp mind searched for tactical advantages in the environment. Even in a world unfamiliar to her, she found comfort in his presence. The human who had captured her trust, her respect, and a piece of her heart all those years ago. The city around them remained unaware of the approaching danger. People walked, cars moved, and life continued. But above it all, two figures prepared to face a threat far beyond ordinary human comprehension. One was a princess from a distant world, and the other was the human who had unknowingly become her anchor in a universe full of uncertainty. Lyra took a deep breath, her eyes meeting Ethan's. "Whatever happens next, we face it together." He nodded. Together. For the first time in years, they were united, not just by past memories, but by the present moment and the challenges that awaited. And as the shadows shifted below, and the distant hum of advanced technology grew louder, both knew that the encounter they had long awaited was only the beginning. The galaxy had brought them together once again, but the trials ahead would test every skill, every instinct, and every ounce of trust between them. And through it all, Lyra knew one thing. For certain, she would never leave him behind again. The night air was tense and electric. Lyra and Ethan crouched behind a low wall atop a rooftop, overlooking the city streets below. The distant hum of alien engines grew louder, a sound unfamiliar and ominous. Lyra's eyes narrowed as she focused on the approaching figures, sleek dark ships moving with deadly precision. "They're close," she whispered, her fingers brushing against the small control panel on her wrist. It glowed faintly, scanning for energy signatures. "They've tracked me here, and now they've found you too." Ethan's jaw tightened, his gaze fixed on the shadows of movement below. "Then let's make sure they regret it," he said, his voice calm but resolute. Lyra allowed herself a small smile. Humans were fragile, yes, but their courage could rival even the most disciplined soldiers of her world. Ethan, standing beside her, embodied that perfectly. He had survived countless trials simply through ingenuity, quick thinking, and a stubborn will. And now, he would have to use all of it. The first wave of enemy scouts landed in the streets, moving with silent precision. Their forms were humanoid but clad in dark armor, their weapons glowing with energy. Lyra recognized them immediately. They were agents from rival factions on Xanthera, sent to capture her and eliminate any witnesses. They won't hesitate, Lyra warned. They are trained killers. We need a plan. Ethan scanned the street below, noting the cover they could use. Cars, trash bins, street lamps, all small advantages in a world unfamiliar to Lyra but instinctive to him. We fight smart, he said simply. We use what we have and we keep moving. Lyra nodded. She activated a small device on her wrist, sending out a pulse that temporarily disrupted the enemy's communications. The scouts froze, their weapons flickering. That will buy us a few minutes, she said. Use it wisely. The first clash was sudden and intense. Lyra moved with incredible speed, her alien strength allowing her to take down several scouts with precise strikes. Ethan, using human creativity, improvised traps, overturned trash bins, loose cables, and shadows to slow their advance. Together they were a perfect combination, alien skill and human ingenuity. Despite their coordination, the enemies were relentless. More scouts arrived, moving faster and more intelligently than before. Lyra realized that these were not ordinary soldiers. They had been trained specifically to track and capture her. We need to draw them out of the streets, she shouted over the hum of combat. Keep them moving. They rely on numbers, not strategy. Ethan nodded, spotting a narrow alley leading to a construction site. This way, follow me, he said, sprinting with agility that belied his size. Lyra followed, her long strides covering the distance in seconds. The alley was dark, filled with shadows and debris. Ethan used it to his advantage, setting up obstacles that forced the scouts to slow down. Lyra struck from above, her movements precise and deadly. Together they began to thin the enemy numbers. You're amazing, Lyra said quietly, dodging a sweeping attack. Humans, your creativity is incredible. Ethan grinned despite the tension. You're not so bad yourself, he replied, using a metal pipe to knock an enemy off balance before pushing it into a trap. I've had some practice. Following instructions from a princess across the galaxy helps. Lyra allowed herself a brief laugh, a moment of levity amidst chaos. Their teamwork was flawless, built on trust and understanding forged long ago on Zenthara. Even after years apart, they moved in sync, anticipating each other's actions. But the enemy was learning. The scouts adapted, moving more strategically, coordinating their attacks despite Lyra's disruption pulse. Lyra's eyes scanned for patterns, searching for the best way to turn the tide. There, she shouted, pointing to a nearby crane in the construction site. We can use that to our advantage. Lead them under it. Ethan nodded, immediately understanding. He lured the scouts toward the crane, weaving between obstacles, while Lyra activated her device to manipulate the machinery. A massive beam swung down, knocking several scouts to the ground. The enemy agents, shocked and disoriented, regrouped. Lyra and Ethan had bought themselves precious minutes, but they knew the final wave was coming. The real threat, the leaders of the enemy faction. They're not just scouts, Lyra said, her voice tense. The leaders are here, and they won't stop until we're eliminated. Ethan's eyes hardened. Then we give them hell. The leaders arrived in a small transport, stepping out with confidence and deadly precision. They were taller, faster, and more heavily armed than the scouts. Lyra recognized them immediately. They had trained her on Zenthara and knew her weaknesses. You cannot escape us, princess, one of them said, his voice cold and mechanical. And the human with you. He will not survive. Lyra's eyes glimmered with determination. You are mistaken, she replied, her voice steady. He is not just a human. He is resourceful, clever, and courageous. And together we are unstoppable. Ethan readied himself, pulling together pieces of debris, cables, and whatever else he could use as weapons. Despite his human limitations, he felt confident beside Lyra. She had trusted him before, and now she trusted him again. That was enough to make him unstoppable. The battle intensified. Lyra struck with precision, her alien strength allowing her to take down multiple enemies at once. Ethan moved with surprising agility, using the environment to his advantage. He pushed and pulled, lifted and threw, and set traps that confused and injured the enemy. Together they were a storm, unpredictable, relentless and deadly. The leaders struggled to adapt, but human ingenuity combined with alien skill proved too much. "You think humans are weak?" Lyra shouted, striking an enemy with incredible force. "Look at him. Look at what they can do." Ethan grinned, dodging an attack and sending an enemy crashing into a wall. "And don't forget me," he shouted back. The enemy faltered, their confidence shaken. Lyra saw an opening, a chance to end the fight quickly. She leapt onto a nearby building ledge, using her strength to swing down onto the enemy leader. Her strike was precise, knocking him unconscious. Ethan used the moment to disable the remaining enemies, improvising a trap with wires and debris that sent them sprawling. Within moments, the streets were quiet again, the enemy defeated or driven off. Lyra breathed heavily, her body tense but alive. She looked at Ethan, a mixture of admiration and relief in her eyes. "You did amazing," she said softly. He smiled, exhausted but proud. "We did it. Together." For the first time since she arrived on Earth, Lyra allowed herself to relax. The danger had passed for now. The human who had once left her had proven himself once again, resourceful, brave, and loyal. She had no doubt that he would survive anything, as long as they faced it together. But Lyra knew this was only the beginning. The enemy had retreated, but they would return. And next time, they might bring more than just scouts and leaders. They might bring entire fleets, entire armies. "We need to prepare," she said, her mind already racing. "They will come back. And next time, we must be ready." Ethan nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. "Then we train, we plan, and we fight smarter. We have each other now. That's our advantage." Lyra felt a surge of hope. Humans were not perfect, but they were adaptable, courageous, and clever. And she had seen that firsthand in Ethan. Together, they could face anything the galaxy threw at them. As they stood on the rooftop, looking down at the city below, Lyra realized something profound. The human she had once loved and trusted had returned to her, not just in memory, but in action. And together they had proven that even the smallest, most fragile species could stand against overwhelming odds. Lyra reached for Ethan's hand, a simple gesture that spoke volumes. "Thank you," she said softly. "For everything. For staying. For fighting. For being human." Ethan squeezed her hand, a quiet affirmation of the bond they shared. "I never left you in my heart," he replied. "Not once." The city, lights twinkled below them, the night alive with possibility. They had survived the first wave, faced impossible odds, and emerged stronger. And as they looked at each other, Lyra knew that no matter what came next, they would face it together. Human ingenuity and alien strength, side by side. The night had tested them, pushed them to their limits, and shown them what they were capable of. And it had proven one undeniable truth. Even in a universe full of danger and betrayal, trust, courage, and teamwork could overcome anything. Lyra and Ethan stood together on the rooftop, ready for whatever the galaxy had in store. And deep in her heart, Lyra knew one thing for certain. She would never let him leave her again, not now, not ever. The city lay quiet beneath the stars, a fragile illusion of peace after the chaos of the previous night. But Princess Lyra and Ethan knew that danger had not disappeared entirely. The enemy had retreated, but their presence lingered like a shadow, a reminder that this was only one battle in a galaxy full of threats. Lyra stood at the edge of the rooftop looking out over the city. Her long hair shimmered under the glow of the streetlights. Beside her, Ethan packed small gadgets and supplies, his hands steady despite the exhaustion that weighed on him. "We've done well," he said, finally looking up at her. "But you're right. They'll come back. And next time they won't be so easy to fight." Lyra nodded. "We must prepare, not just for them, but for anything else that comes from the stars. Earth may seem quiet, but it is a world of possibilities. And dangers," Ethan smiled faintly. "Then we train, Together. Her eyes softened. Together, she agreed. For the first time since she arrived on Earth, Lyra allowed herself to think beyond the immediate danger. She thought about the human who had stolen her trust, her respect, and her heart all those years ago. He had left once, yes, but he had returned, not just in her memory but in reality, standing beside her, ready to face the galaxy. You know, she said quietly, I never stopped thinking about you, not for a single day. I wondered if I had imagined our bond or if it was real. Now I know it was real, and it still is. Ethan looked at her, his expression a mixture of relief, admiration, and something deeper, something that went beyond words. I never stopped either, he said simply. Even when I had to leave, even when it hurt both of us, I never forgot you. I never wanted to. Lyra felt a warmth spread through her chest, a reassurance that transcended galaxies. Here, in this quiet moment, she realized that the human she had once trusted could be trusted again. And more than that, he had proven that humanity's strength was not just in courage or ingenuity, but in loyalty, care, and love. They did not have time for rest, however. The enemy had retreated for now, but their ships were still in orbit, hidden among the stars. Lyra and Ethan needed a plan, not just to survive, but to ensure that Earth remained safe from interstellar threats. First, we secure this area, Lyra said, her voice steady. We fortify it, create traps, and establish defenses. They will not catch us off guard again. Ethan nodded, already thinking through strategies. And we gather allies, he added. There are humans who can help us, scientists, engineers, people who think differently. If we combine their knowledge with your technology, we'll be unstoppable. Lyra's eyes glimmered. Yes, humanity's creativity is quite remarkable. I have seen it firsthand. It is why I trust you completely. You adapt, improvise, and find solutions where others see only obstacles. He smiled faintly, a hint of pride in his expression. And you push me to do better. I've learned more from you than I realized. Their conversation was interrupted by a faint sound, a soft whirring, almost like a distant engine. Lyra's eyes narrowed. She moved instinctively, scanning the horizon with alien precision. They are testing us, she said softly. They are probing, seeing if we are vulnerable. Ethan's jaw tightened. Then we give them a reason to retreat permanently. Lyra nodded. Together they moved through the city, setting up small devices that emitted interference waves, disrupting any alien tracking systems. Ethan used human ingenuity to camouflage their position, using shadows, debris, and technology in clever ways that even Lyra had not considered. As the night deepened, they spotted the enemy scouts again. This time moving cautiously, aware that Lyra and Ethan were prepared. The leaders remained in orbit, observing, calculating, planning their next move. Lyra turned to Ethan. Are you ready? She asked. He nodded. I've never been more ready. The final confrontation began as the scouts advanced, unaware that every step was being anticipated. Lyra struck first, moving with speed and precision, her attacks disabling multiple enemies at once. Ethan followed, using the environment to his advantage. Loose wires overturned vehicles and debris became tools of defense and offense. Together, they were unstoppable. The scouts faltered, confusion and fear replacing their initial confidence. Every move they made was countered by the combination of alien skill and human ingenuity. One of the enemy leaders finally descended, stepping into the city with an air of authority. He was taller than the scouts, his armor gleaming under the streetlights. Princess Lyra, he said, his voice cold and mechanical. You cannot hide forever, and the human, he will not survive. Lyra's eyes glimmered. You underestimate him, she said firmly. Humans are more than they appear. He is clever, resourceful, and brave. And together, we are unstoppable. Ethan grinned. holding a makeshift weapon. "You heard her," he said. "Don't test us." The leader lunged, but Lyra was faster. She dodged, struck, and incapacitated him with precision. Ethan used the distraction to disable the remaining scouts, trapping them with clever devices that immobilized them. Within moments, the city streets were quiet once more. Lyra breathed heavily, her heart pounding from the intensity of the battle. She looked at Ethan, admiration and gratitude shining in her eyes. "You were incredible," she said softly. He smiled, exhausted but proud. "We were incredible. Together." The night had tested them, pushed them to their limits, and revealed the depth of their bond. Lyra realized something profound. Humans, despite their fragility, possessed a strength that surpassed technology, weapons, and even interstellar experience. It was their heart, their courage, and their ingenuity that made them formidable. "You stayed," she said quietly, taking his hand. "Even when I was far away, even when the galaxy tried to keep us apart, you stayed." "I never left," Ethan replied. "Not in my heart, not once." Lyra smiled, a genuine warmth spreading through her chest. For the first time since arriving, on Earth she felt complete. The human who had once disappeared had returned, not just in presence but in trust, courage, and love. The city was quiet now, the danger past, for the moment. Lyra and Ethan stood together on the rooftop looking at the stars. The universe stretched endlessly above them, filled with possibilities, dangers, and adventures yet to come. "I suppose this is just the beginning," Ethan said, his gaze fixed on the sky. Lyra nodded. "Yes, but we face it together, always." He smiled, squeezing her hand. "Always." For a moment they simply stood there side by side, drawing strength from each other. The stars above were the same ones Lyra had gazed upon from Zenthera, and yet now they were shared with someone who had once left her, but had returned stronger, wiser, and braver than ever. "You know," Lyra said softly, "Earth is beautiful, different, chaotic, alive. I think I understand now why you came here, why you stayed human. There is courage here, creativity, hope, everything worth protecting." Ethan looked at her, a small smile tugging at his lips. "And now you understand why I had to leave and why I had to come back." Lyra laughed quietly, a soft sound that mingled with the night air. "Yes, and I forgive you for leaving, for everything, because you came back, and that matters more than anything else." Ethan reached for her, pulling her into a gentle embrace. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." The night stretched on, quiet and serene. Earth remained peaceful, oblivious to the interstellar battle that had taken place above its streets. But for Lyra and Ethan, the city was no longer just a place, it was a home, a place of reunion, trust, and hope. And as they stood together, watching the stars, Lyra realized something she had long suspected, but had now confirmed. Humans were more than fragile beings. They were resilient, clever, and capable of courage beyond imagination. And Ethan, the human who had once left her, was the perfect example. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, filled with enemies, challenges, and mysteries. But as long as they faced it together, Lyra knew they could overcome anything. Human ingenuity and alien strength side by side could achieve the impossible. The stars shone brightly above them, and for the first time in years, Lyra felt truly at peace. The human she had come so far to find was here, safe, and ready to face the future, together. And in that moment, she knew one undeniable truth. No matter the galaxy, no matter the danger, love, trust, and courage would always prevail. Lyra whispered softly, her voice blending with the night wind. "We have faced the stars. Together, and we will continue to do so." Ethan smiled, holding her hand tightly. "Together."